Okay, time for the third video in this series. Last time we had aliens spawning and the player being able to move around, no collisions yet and no bullets being launched. So how about we add those bullets? Well, to do that we need some timers because we're going to have to check if that firing timer reaches 0 for the enemy. Actually, I've said 0 there, but I'm actually going to count upwards, I think. And we'll need also a firing timer for the player. So if we scroll up to the definition of our sprite class, I've actually put in a comment ahead of time. I figured I was spending too much time typing, and this is a video, so you can always hit pause if you need to catch up with me. So I went ahead and typed in the code beforehand so I can just uncomment it and you can see it right away. Okay, so anyway, I've added this public integer, so integer that's available anywhere. You can access the sprite class. It has a fire timer in it, which will initially obviously be 0. Now if we scroll down to where this would have been near the bottom of the update function, here's a loop to deal with the bad guy list in terms of firing. So I'm going to go ahead and click this button here, which is uncomment, currently commented out, so uncomment them, and I'll explain what it does. It's a for each loop. It's quite similar to one you may have seen me do in the previous video. It goes through all the bad guys in the bad guy list, just like this loop up here. But instead of moving them, it's going to count up their individual fire timers. So every alien that's in the list is going to have its fire timer updated as long as it is in the game. So it goes up by 1 per frame, and once that timer reaches 80, remember it's 60 frames a second, so that's roughly 1.3 seconds. So every 1.3 seconds that timer will reach 80, and then we'll reset it to 0. But before we reset it to 0, we're going to create a new sprite called new bullet, and I'm going to assign a position to that bullet. Now we could just make the position for the bullet equal to the position of the bad guy that's firing it, but what will happen then is the bullet will launch from the top left corner of the alien, because that's what the position stores. When you draw a sprite, you draw it from the top left corner, so that's why position stores the top left corner. To find the middle of the alien, we're going to take that position and add on a new vector 2, which is split into x and y coordinates. We're not changing the x coordinates, so we'll put a 0 in there. We might want to change that at a later date, which is why we're using a vector instead of just accessing one coordinate. The y coordinate we're going to change though by calculating the height of the bad guy's graphic divided by 2, in other words halfway down the bad guy graphic, and then subtract half of the height of the bullet. So we find the middle of the bullet and the middle of the bad guy and take the difference between the two. What that will do is it will move the bullet down so that the middle of the bullet is in line with the middle of the bad guy. So that sets its initial position. Next we need to set its initial velocity and make it -15 on the x-axis. So that means it will move 15 frames per second to the left. So once that's all set up, your bullet's ready to go, and you add that bullet to the bullet list. And then reset the fire timer so that another 1.3 seconds later it will fire again. I think in my case they fire about 3 times before the bad guy goes off the screen. Right, so once the bullet's there, we need another loop, so I'm going to uncomment the next loop. It goes through all the bullets in the bullet list and changes their position based on their velocity, which remember is -15 on the x-axis. So this will continually move all the bullets on the screen to the left, 15 pixels per frame. Next, this loop here, well, it starts off by declaring a thing called bullet list position, an integer which starts at 0. And as you go through the loop, as you go through every bullet in the list, that position goes up by 1. So that variable, in other words, keeps track of which bullet you're currently accessing. And if that bullet has a position on the x-axis which is less than -29, sorry, then it means it's went past the left-hand side of the screen, which is x value 0, and it's went past it so far at 29 pixels, which is the width of the bullet. So it's went past it so far that the bullet is actually no longer visible. We may as well remove it, and that's exactly what we do. Bullet list.remove at, and which bullet do we remove? The one that we're keeping track of. Last thing I've got in there is a break. Break stops the loop, or at least stops the current iteration of the loop, so it moves on to the next bullet. again, there's a slight bug there, in that it may skip one bullet after it removes one. Excellent time for my mobile phone to ring. What was I saying there? Yeah, so it breaks out of that iteration of the loop, which means it'll move on to the next bullet. There's a potential bug, it might skip one bullet, but in this game it doesn't really matter, because there's only going to be one bullet removed at a time. They only fire so many, and even if they don't remove them until the next frame, it's not a problem. They're invisible anyway, because they went past the side of the screen. Okay, next up we let the player fire. So let's bring that bit of code in. We update the player's fire timer by adding 1 to it, so it's counting upwards from 0 as well. Once it reaches at least 5 or more in other words, and the player presses the space key down, it means you want to fire a bullet, and you can fire a bullet because it's been more than 5 frames since the last time you shot. Again, create a new sprite, set its position so that it's equal to the player's position, top left corner, remember, and add on half of the player's height, subtract half of the bullet's height to line up the middles of the bullet and the player. Set its velocity to 25, so it moves 25 pixels to the right, i.e. the x-axis, every frame, and then add that bullet to the player bullet list, which is a different list. Then you reset the fire timer. I just realised I haven't told you what those two lists are. Here we are here. There was a bad guy list, there's a bullet list, there's a player bullet list. They're all just lists of sprites, and they all get initialized the same way, just equals new list sprite for the bullets and the player bullets. Sorry about that. Okay, but back to the code. We're nearly finished. 2 more loops. The player has fired a bullet, so we need to move each bullet in the player's bullet list. Fairly simple loop, go through every bullet in the player's bullet list, update its position based on its velocity. And last but not least, again a similar loop to the one we had earlier, where we loop through the enemy's bullets, taking them off the screen if they go past 29 pixels past the left. Exact same, but this time going through the player's bullet list, and we check the right hand side of the screen, which is 800, so it has to go greater than 800 before it goes off the screen. And that's pretty much it. So let's play that. Hopefully we'll be able to move around, fire bullets. The fire button doesn't seem to be working. And also they aren't firing back. Why is that? I'm not too sure, so let's put in a breakpoint. And we'll click down here. Oh no, wait a minute, actually I know exactly what's wrong. I forgot to draw these bullets. I put in the code and forgot to uncomment it. One loop to go through the bullets in the bullet list and draw them in the bullet's position with a white tint, and a separate loop to go through the player's bullet list and draw them, this time with a red tint just for a little bit of clarity. Let's see that in action. Okay, there's obviously no collisions yet, but things are more or less working as expected. But now you're going to have to take my word on this and just believe me when I tell you that I'm going to move to the left and upwards while firing. Fire, left, and I'm pressing the up key now and it's not going up. Same thing might happen to the right and down as well. Essentially when you press 3 keys at the same time, there's no guarantee that the actual keyboard will register all 3 keys being pressed. It's a limitation of the hardware. Keyboard's not been changed for decades, the basic layout. It's a matrix of keys, and sometimes when the lines that are carrying electricity are a certain pattern, it can't register additional keys. That's why you don't see multiplayer games using one keyboard, or at least one of the reasons why you don't see that. So you have to either use different devices, keyboard and mouse, or multiple gamepads. XNA supports Xbox gamepads, but if you want to use more sort of generic PC gamepads, you'll have to do some fancy footwork. You can emulate an Xbox controller, or you can try and find some generic controller drivers for XNA. I wouldn't recommend that route, but it can be done. But that's for another day. At the moment, all the code is there for a fairly basic game, and the next thing we're going to do is check for collisions. So I'll do that in the next tutorial. All I'm going to end with here is deleting the pseudocode, because apart from that collisions, it's all been done. And I'm going to save it there, and then we'll see you in the next tutorial.